Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast.
And welcome back to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host today, Joe, and I'm joined by Chris, and we have our guest on, Steve. How are you guys doing today?
Good, man. I'm sweaty. I just finished up working out right now, but I couldn't miss this podcast for the world. So here I am with you guys.
Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic.
So we're going to go over some of the NFL Combine, some risers and fallers based off of some of their performances at the Combine for fantasy football. But before we start off, we have a quick question of the day. The Broncos announced that they will no longer be keeping Russell Wilson. So the quick question is, where do you think Russ is going? Steve, we'll start with you. Where do you think Russell Wilson is going?
Where do I think he's going? He could end up going, hear me out, to New York. Giants need a quarterback. Okay. He's going to be He's going to be very, very low cost, right? And hopefully this draft class, they can actually trade up and get like a Caleb Williams or like a Drake May or somebody like that. But in the meantime, they got to fill that gap because clearly DJ's not the option. And Tommy DeVito, God, I love him. That's not a solid roster. You're going to need somebody in case something happens. So that would be the ideal situation. Now, he didn't actually turn out last season the way everybody thought it would, especially with Peyton as coach and everything like that. It's a little lackluster, but where can the Giants go from here? Nowhere but up, baby.
I mean, we're already at the bottom, so there's not many other places to go. Chris, where's your guess? Where do you think Russ is going?
I honestly today really thought that the Giants is an actual landing spot, but I think. And this team's like really up in the air right now. There's so much movement going on with this team right now in terms of who they're getting at quarterback. I think a decent landing spot might be the Atlanta Falcons. They've already had rumors that the Justin Fields trade was completed, and then like a day later, apparently Kirk Cousins is looking to buy a house down in Atlanta. So now apparently Kirk Cousins might be going there. We can just add, Dangerous Sandwich Guy to the mix and call it a day. We get the big trifecta of
Dangerous Sandwich.
But I mean, is it far fetched? Maybe, but if I'm the Falcons, anything is an improvement to what they have currently right now, which is, I would argue, basically nothing. And knowing that Kirk Cousins might go back to Minnesota, and clearly the Justin Fields deal not totally cemented, I would argue that Russell Wilson is not exactly too much of a reach here.
Okay. I could see that. My guess is the Las Vegas Raiders.
I was going to say Raiders second. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jimmy, I think isn't he suspended right now or something?
He is suspended for like 3 games at the beginning of the season.
I don't even think it matters. I don't think he's that good to begin with.
Yeah.
But he can't play anyway. He's suspended, and Aiden O'Connell didn't look the worst, but he didn't look like an NFL franchise quarterback. Yeah.
Not a starter.
He looked like a good backup. Mm-hmm. So bring in a pro like Russ Wilson, let Aiden kind of develop a little, learn from Russ, and then see where it goes. So that's my guess. I would love for him to go to the Giants. I mean, I've been a Daniel Jones hater since we drafted him.
Same, honestly, no.
When you draft a quarterback and you're like, wait, what? Well, that's not even the best one available. Why did we take this guy?
Everybody thought that.
You drafted a quarterback from a basketball school. It didn't go well.
Anytime I think of Daniel Jones, all I think about is the stumble.
Yeah.
That's all I think about.
Stumble,
like, oh, wow, he's fast. Oh, he fell.
It's like, wide open. Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into today's show. We are going to first talk about some of the value risers in the NFL Combine. Some of these guys showed up. There was some records set and some really good performers. So the first guy we're going to talk about, no surprise, is Rome Odunze, who, if you have been following the podcast or any NFL podcast ever, and you do Dynasty football, he is considered part of the quote-unquote top 7, the big 7 rookie draft picks. Caleb, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Neighbors and Brock Bowers are the big kahunas of the draft class. They say if you can get in the top 7, do it because you can get one of these guys. Odunze, from a lot of what I was seeing, was considered the wide receiver 3 of the class, and I've been seeing him go at pick 5, usually around like pick 6 or 7. But he showed up at the combine. Did the other 2 guys? No, they did not. Were they expected to? No, not when you're projected in the first round. Usually, you don't have to show up at the combine. You already showed enough. But Rome Odunze showed up at the combine and he had a pretty good day. He showed his work ethic. A lot of people, a lot of what I've been seeing is from his work ethic and him being at the combine that a lot of teams are projecting him above Malik Neighbors. And I've seen that in a lot of fantasy drafts too. Steve, you have anything you want to touch on with Rome Odunze?
Yeah, I mean, he showed out. He's solid. I mean, guy fits the part. 6'1", 213 or 216, has a very solid vertical. 40-yard dashes, like on par with everybody else. My only concern with him is this draft class is going to be very, very heavy wide receiver. So he might get shuffled into the mix of just your average ordinary, right, amongst the rest of them. So this was really his time to show out, and he did a good job. But let's see if that kind of bumps his number up a little bit as a result.
For sure. I definitely agree with that. This class has a lot of wide receiver, but the only thing I'll say with that is that I think a lot of them are going to see first day draft capital, just with so much talent there. I could see some second day, but I see a lot of them going first day. Chris, do you have anything to add on Rome Odunze at the combine?
Yeah, I just had I'm actually looking at some projected drafts right now, currently. I actually did this on purpose. I tried to find one that was updated after the combine and one before the combine, which I was luckily able to do so. The one from before the combine is the San Diego Union Tribune. So please take this with a grain of salt. I've never heard of these people before in my entire life. But most of these picks here don't seem too out of sorts, so I'm willing to go with at least something to a certain extent. Before the combine, they were projecting Rome Odunze to go number 9 to Chicago. And now after that, I actually have him going on this list from Sports Illustrated. Sports Illustrated, going right after pick number 5, which is Malik Neighbors. He would go pick number 6 to the New York Giants, as if we need another wide receiver that we're going to waste.
Chris, we need everything.
We need a wide receiver 1, buddy.
We need everything.
Who's gonna throw him the ball? Who?
One piece at a time,
Wilson,
Chris.
You're right. Sorry. Yeah, no, actually,
you gotta see the plan. We get the Dunze now, and we get another piece next year, and then we get Archie Manning, and it's all put together. You know.
But yeah, so he's risen to, as you said, that top 7 spot, and he's like right there, literally behind Malik Neighbors on this list. And I'm sure there are plenty of lists that have them switched very easily without any issues at all, to be quite honest with you. He definitely made his name at the combine, or cemented, I should say. I know the pro day is coming up as well for him, so we'll have even more chances to do so in a more perhaps familiar setting as well. So I only see it going up, hopefully, as long as nothing bad happens between now and then in terms of character or God forbid injury, or just a bad day at a pro day. Sorry, I can't speak.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, you don't normally expect to see these big names show up at the draft. Like we didn't see Marvin Harrison there. We didn't see Malik Neighbors there. I didn't expect to see Rome Odunze there. So I was very happy to see him there and watch him do some of these drills, and it was a lot of fun to watch. And he looks good. I've heard he has some of the smartest football knowledge out of all the wide receivers in the class. That he's just very football savvy. So we shall see where he lands. Number 2 on our list of risers, we have Brian Thomas Jr. He had a very impressive pro day. Looked really good in all the drills he did. The one thing I'll say with Brian Thomas is it's kind of unfortunate that he's in the class that is in, just because, like Steve noted on, it is so wide receiver heavy. I could easily see him being a top 5 pick if he was in a different draft class. He definitely has wide receiver 1 upside, in my opinion. It's just unfortunate that he is in a class with Marvin Harrison Jr., who is a generational talent, and Malik Neighbors and Adunze, who are also extremely talented. That being said, I still think Brian Thomas is going to see a late first round fantasy rookie draft position. I see him usually going around pick 8 or 9. I think he's going to still see day one, first round NFL draft capital, and he had a pretty good pro day. Steve, you got anything to add for Brian Thomas Jr.?
No, but I think you're right in the fact that he's going to be shuffled a little bit lower. So he might actually be able to be scooped up by a good team. I see that they're saying the Bengals are an opportunity, and that would be such a great synergy. A young, healthy Burrow, shuffling it over to him, right? I think that's something to be looked at as well, because while you're taking notes of these top 3, top 5, top 6 or 7, like you're saying, he might actually outperform him depending on the team that he goes to.
That's true. Yeah, some of these later wide receivers that are arguably have just as much talent as some of the top guys, and they get to go to some of these better teams, like you just said. That's very true. Mm-hmm. All depends on landing spot too. So, Chris, you have anything to add on Brian Thomas Jr.?
Yeah, honestly, so he ran top 3 in terms of wide receivers within the combine. His time was phenomenal. He clearly showed out. As Steve said, he's going to go to a good team. This is like the recipe for, I think it was Amon-Ra St. Brown who said that he remembered every single wide receiver that got drafted before him. This is pretty much the exact same story. We're setting it up right here. This guy is going to remember every single wide receiver that drafted before him, and in a good situation, all right? I mean, this guy, I feel like this is the type of people, besides like your number 1 like wide receiver or whatever in each position going to get drafted, right? It's these type of people that like they showed out, they did their thing. Maybe it was a bit too late because they didn't do it during the season, right? But they proved that they can do stuff, right? And while they might not jump the leaderboards too much in terms of getting drafted earlier, right? This is where they know they're good enough. They, very clearly they're confident, and they're going to take that chip on their shoulder all the way into the NFL and probably blossom and end up doing incredibly well. I have really high hopes for him, honestly, going into the NFL. Moving on to most teams that he goes on.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. We were high. I was high on him before the combine, and the combine only reassured what I was high on him for. Great 40 time, looked athletic. He showed us what he could do in college. One big thing I always hype about Brian Thomas Jr. is he put up pretty good college numbers, and you got to think about it. He was behind Malik Neighbors. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that just speaks to the type of player he is to be able to do that with such a playmaker also playing with him. But moving on to our next guy, we have Adonai Mitchell, who looked like an absolute unit out there. I mean, a 4.34 40 at his size is scary. It gives me like DK flashes, like this big, fast threat on the field, and it makes me excited. We all knew Adonai Mitchell was athletic. The combine just kind of reiterated it. He should see first round draft capital in the NFL draft. I don't see him making it to day 2. And I think he is definitely a late first round fantasy rookie draft wide receiver. I think he'll be a little after Brian Thomas. I have him after Brian Thomas Jr. in my rankings. I could see you make the argument that he should go before Brian Thomas Jr., but definitely in that pick 8, 9, 10 range of fantasy drafts, depending on the needs. But definitely an absolute unit. Steve, what do you have to say about Adonai Mitchell?
He fits the bill. I mean, look at those numbers. He showed up and he showed out when it was important to kind of put his name out there. And it's going to be a different playmaker, but kind of the same story as the previous one, where he's going to be at the lower half of the draft class. So he'll actually be able to be scooped up by a good team. And looking at some reports and seeing what some other people are saying, I think after the combine, he had a meeting with the Bills. And could you just imagine that kind of a powerhouse offense with him plugged in?
I could see him walking right into Gabe Davis's shoes if Gabe Davis is somewhere else.
So, I mean, if he walks in now, or if he kind of grows within that team and kind of proves himself over the couple of years, stays healthy, stays out of trouble, he could easily jump up to like a wide receiver 2. And I mean, Stefon Diggs, we'll see what happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, especially if Diggs isn't there, I could easily see him even being a wide receiver 1 there. I would love him on the Bills. Chris, do you have anything to add on Adonai Mitchell?
No, honestly, I don't really have much to add on Adonai Mitchell. I think it was a surprise. I think everything you said is valid. It makes sense. Seeing him on a good team, it could be like, like you said, Gabe Davis, or we could see like a T. Higgins situation, or something crazy where this is like this random, secondary wide receiver who is going to catch your 70-yard deep ball for no reason and score a touchdown off of it. Who knows? He clearly has the speed for it. He's clearly built for it. Yeah, 100%.
All right. Moving on to our next riser for their combine performance, we have Trey Benson, our first running back, or spoiler alert, our only running back on this show. I just wanted to add Trey Benson because I kind of have him as my running back 1 for the class now. He put up an excellent combine. He ran a 4.39, and he's a big guy. I mean, he's about the same size as Breece Hall, and he's running about the same speed. And we've seen what Breece Hall can do. Hopefully, Trey Benson can do the same exact thing that Breece Hall is doing for another team. Super athletic dude. Probably my RB1 for the class outside of Mr. ACL tear. But definitely showed up at the combine, helped his draft capital. We'll see where he goes, and hopefully it's not buried beneath a depth chart of running backs. Steve, do you have anything to add on Trey Benson?
No, I think he's a good fit for. It's like a Breece Hall situation where what offensive structure does he jive the most with, and where could he actually get the most touches to kind of grow into this NFL superstar, right? And not get shuffled because the team's already stacked enough, and it becomes like a RB1, RB2, or kind of like switching off kind of situation, like the Saints had a couple of years ago. But where would this guy actually fit in well? I think Green Bay could actually pick him up and use him, depending on his slot number too in his draft class. It's actually a very viable option for them. Another article saying the Ravens would actually be a good move, and just based on how Lamar Jackson is that offense alone, it's like that would probably be the best pick. But again, do we want to have him sit behind and be RB2, RB3 for a couple of years, right?
Based off of every Ravens running back that has got injured, I feel like they're cursed, and I would not like him to go there. But I definitely don't think Dobbins is there next year. They had that rookie that looked pretty promising. He got hurt as well.
Keaton Mitchell,
because he's a Ravens running back. So it's just you become a Ravens running back, you get hurt. It's just what happens. Even Lamar got hurt because he's a Ravens running back. So, but I definitely agree with you. I would love him on Green Bay, like you said. That'd be a great spot, I think. And I think he's gonna fit great somewhere. Chris, you have anything to add for Trey Benson?
Yeah, so I was looking at projected draft positions for Trey Benson just now, and I've noticed that he is very scattered, to be quite honest with you. Very, very scattered. Unfortunately, not first round, but most of which are in the second. I have seen very early third round, but like I said, I'm not too sure where to measure this. But I think the most interesting prospect for him to go, I have a list here at pick number 50. Philadelphia from New Orleans selects Trey Benson. Now that could be great. I feel like that would not be a bad place for him to go. I don't think there's a solidified run game within Philadelphia currently. I mean, you had DeAndre Swift. Who was the guy behind him? Why can't I think of his name? I know it's not Miles Sanders. It was some young Boston Scott.
He's on Philadelphia.
Right, yeah. But like this could be an opportunity for Philly to really pick up. Especially, I feel like in this area we have like right now, especially with Pacheco, I believe he was a third rounder. Rashad White was a third rounder. Another like household names. I mean, they're just good on their team. I feel like this is a good time for if you're getting a running back within those like middle of the rounds area after like round one, definitely could be thrusted into the number one position. And on Philadelphia, good line. I know they just lost Jason Kelsey, unfortunately, but not all hope is lost, and it'll be a good test for him because I feel like he, after a couple games, would be put into that RB1 position.
No, I definitely agree, and he's my RB1 of the class, but
Mhm.
I don't want to forget my original RB1, Jonathan Brooks. Still suffering from his ACL tear, but he is ahead of schedule, and he was meeting with NFL teams, and his size is there, so he's right. I feel like at least in my rankings, he's right behind Trey Benson, and if he didn't tear his ACL, most likely I would have him above Trey Benson, but just factoring in that, have him behind. Just want to give him a shout out if you're watching, Jonathan Brooks. But moving on to our last riser from the combine, you can't not talk about him is Xavier Worthy. As you know, he set the fastest 40 yard dash record in NFL history. Dare I say anything else? He should see round one, or I could see early day two NFL draft capital. Um, he's a fast guy. He's a fast guy. Um, he, we knew he was fast, but I didn't know he was that fast. I didn't know he was going to set a record, but I thought he was going to put up like a 4.33 or something. I did not, or 4.3. I didn't think he was going to put up a 4.21, and I was this was my biggest shock of the combine. Steve, do you have anything to talk about Xavier Worthy?
I mean, that guy is quick. That's basically the sum of the whole combine. Is this guy just took over and really showed out? And this is exactly why you participate in these kinds of events, is because talk about best way to boost your draft capital. I mean, when you're going out there and you're putting up a 41 vertical leap and you're doing all of these record-breaking events, it's hard not to get talked about, and that's why he's in the conversation of, do the Chiefs draft him? Does Andy Reid want to bring him into the fold? I mean, could that be like a junior, like a Tyreek Hill almost, and you just plug him in? And we saw how well Tyreek
like that
fit with that offense,
Yeah,
right?
that'd
So
be good. Is there? I don't know if there's room there though. I mean, Kadarius Toney's there. So.
Oh yeah, of course.
Whoa!
Don't overlook my man Kadarius Toney. Yeah, it's just a poor performance for the first half, but he took him to
He's so
Super
good
Bowl.
that they didn't
Super Bowl winner Kadarius Toney. You put some respect on that.
I hate that you just said that.
And you hate that I'm not wrong.
I hate that.
Chris, do you have
Yeah.
anything to add about Xavier Worthy?
I gotta be honest with you. I'm like in the same line of thinking with the Kansas City Chiefs thing here. Honestly, Xavier Worthy kind of reminds me. I feel like he's getting the exact same talk as Jalen Hyatt did in terms of this guy, similar building to a sense, speedy type of guy. Uh, I I think this works for Kansas City. I actually have it here. Pick number 32, Xavier Worthy. Like right here, on this little mock track thing I'm looking at. I don't think it's out of the ordinary. I feel like this is exactly what that team needs. They need a guy who's explosive that can get separation, go down the field, and call it a day for a catch. Like that's clearly what they are missing. We felt that during the regular season. I understand they won the Super Bowl, but there are still issues, right? If you were a winning team, you're going to look at everything that you had an issue with and try to fix it. And this is the exact thing that can happen. And if this guy ends up on that team and fills that Tyreek hole that was left there when Hill decided to go to Miami, this is a perfect opportunity for every fantasy over known to mankind that gets this guy, because you might get Tyreek Hill numbers. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And most mocks that I see of him, granted we haven't had the NFL draft, but most rookie mocks that I've seen, you're getting him late in the first, early second round. That's great value for the type of player he is, especially if he can imitate some of those Tyreek Hill numbers. Sign me up. That's a steal. Switching to the complete opposite end of the spectrum, these are some of the people that did not perform well at the combine and definitely hurt their draft capital. The first one we have is Keon Coleman. On the complete opposite end of Xavier Worthy setting the record, Keon Coleman ran the slowest 40-yard dash of every wide receiver in attendance. Not what you want to do at the NFL Combine. Don't take this the wrong way. I don't think that Keon Coleman is a complete bust now because he did that. But it definitely hurt his draft capital. I saw a lot of mocks of having him as a possible day one wide receiver. Now I see everything I see is he's guaranteed to not be a day one wide receiver because of his combine performance. I've seen him as a day two, maybe even day three, and in a lot of rookie mock drafts, I've seen him late in the second round now, where he used to be late first, early second. Now he's a late second guy that I've been seeing, just purely based off of his slow 40 time. There's already questions to begin with Keon Coleman in my book, but it doesn't help when you put up the slowest time out of all the wide receivers in attendance. You don't want to be the last pick, and that's last pick numbers. Steve, do you have anything to add on Keon Coleman?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough spot to be in, especially with such a heavy draft class. This is not what you want to be putting up, and to be on the fence between day one and day two is hard enough as it is, and to have something like this affect you to where now they're talking about, okay, you're probably going to be at the later half because slow vertical's not that great. I mean, like not slow, but the slowest wide receiver. It's just not a warm, comfy feeling for taking a risk on somebody. However, flip side, if you take a look, people are just calling it one test because you have Devin Funchess. He had a 4.7. Allen Robinson had a 4.6. Kelvin Benjamin had a 4.6. Brandon Lloyd 4.6.
Listen. I heard these comparisons. Everyone's like, "Oh, but Larry Fitzgerald ran a 4.61." This guy is not Larry Fitzgerald.
Wow.
He is not Larry Fitzgerald.
That's bold.
There's already questions of his game. Questions of.
Can we write you down as a Keon Coleman hater?
Oh yeah, I'll be a Keon Coleman. He's slow.
There we go. It's official.
He's slow and he has questions in his game. Do I think he's going to be a bust? Possibly. Not guaranteed, but possibly. I do agree with what you said, Steve. There are outliers. Like, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald ran a 4.61 at his combine, and look at his career. But do I think Keon Coleman is going to be the underlier, the great hero that the NFL deserves? No.
I'm very surprised.
I don't think so.
I'd be very surprised.
Chris, do you have anything to add on
Larry? No, I'm not going to add.
Larry Fitzgerald Jr.
I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna add too much here. Obviously, the numbers speak for themselves in terms of how impressed people are. All I'm gonna say is that if you were hoping for Keon to be someone great, look out for March 30th. That's Florida's Pro Day. Maybe he turns it around there. Who knows?
Maybe. Our last faller for their NFL Combine performance is Ja'Tavion Sanders. He ran a 4.69 40, which is not the worst, but when you're at the combine, you don't want to be like, okay, that's okay. You want to be good. You want to be, wow, that guy's fast. I want to invest in him. I want him on my team. And when you're first, he's not even the number one tight end prospect because there's Brock Bowers, who's a freak of nature. He's the number 2 prospect. And you have other tight ends at the combine like Jaheim Bell, Theo Johnson having great pro days or great combine days. It makes you look terrible in comparison, which is what it did to Ja'Tavion Sanders. I've already been kind of off on Ja'Tavion Sanders. I've heard a lot of reports of at the Senior Bowl he was skipping team meetings, a lot of negative attitude sort of things. So like just the negative attitude alone was like, okay, maybe this guy's just a jerk, but maybe he's at least good. And then he comes out and he runs a 4.69. It's like, okay, maybe this guy's a jerk and he also kind of sucks. You know, I don't know. I heard a lot of comparisons that he has that build to be like that Njoku type, like athletic freak, but a 4.69 does not show does not look promising to me.
Yeah, I'm missing the genetic freak part of that.
Yes. Steve, do you have anything to add on Mr. Sanders over here?
You can't be slower than like most linebackers. That's just my kind of piece of it.
That's rough.
Am I
That's
wrong though? I'm
rough.
looking at other
No?
reports, and it's like low 4.6s for some linebackers and some other defensive positions. Where it's
I mean,
just like,
the tight end
look.
position, it doesn't need to be like it doesn't like these wide receivers. It doesn't need to be up in those like 4.3, 4.4.
No, not at all.
But compared to the other tight ends that were at the combine,
Mhm.
it made Sanders look super slow and bad. It's like, okay, that's an okay number. It's like, do I want to invest my draft pick into like an okay guy? Probably not. You know, these teams are probably like, oh well, why would I take a shot on Sanders when I could when you have Jaheim Bell and Theo Johnson that are at the combine and they are having themselves a day. You know, like these guys are. Granted, they're not projected as high as
It-
tight ends as Sanders.
Yeah. It just limits where you think he can go, right? We have so many different variations. This position's molded over the years. You got slot receivers like Kelsey, but then you also have blocking tight ends like George Kittle, who's like really proficient in that area. But it's like with a 4.7, where do you put him? What you're supposed to be able to do everything, and if you're limited by your speed already, then I think that just turns a lot of teams off. And I don't know where to put this guy, to be honest with you.
Maybe he can block the punter.
That's about it.
Chris, do you have anything to add on Jatavion Sanders?
You can block
Yeah,
the Gatorade on the
I'm
sidelines.
actually I'm looking at that's rough. Yikes. I'm actually looking at the top 10 running times right now for tight ends. And he is number 9 at that time. He was beaten out by 8 other people. He's obviously very much as I said, projected to go the second tight end overall. And some of these people I feel like are way lower on this list. We are seeing the tight end position evolve in real time. From this strictly a block every now and then pass to as Steve said, we got slot receivers, we got more blocking guys, we got mixture of both. At some point, I'm just going to be convinced that teams will just say, "Hey, let's just have another wide receiver at the tight end position and call it a day." That will block
that's what
once
a
a
lot are
game.
doing.
Yeah, it's like, we got like Sam Laporta,
Yeah.
filling in like the next coming of Travis Kelce. Who knows? Maybe even better. Because we're getting to a point where offense is becoming infinitely more important. There's like these fast plays. The quarterbacks are more mobile. The lines don't have to be as proficient as they used to be because they can just get out of the pocket and then throw it down the field. Having a tight end that, the 4-yard dash is 4.69, this like slow, bulky type of thing. It's not as appealing. It's not as flashy as the others. I'm sure there are teams that would love that. I'm sure. I mean, God, Bill Belichick loves using people that seemingly don't, have anywhere else to go and will somehow make them useful for some reason. I mean,
It's like an
he made
orphanage over there.
he made a career off of it for about 20 years. But I don't think his this isn't the end of days for him, but it's definitely not a good look. He has his pro day still, so
Yeah, I
totally
mean,
give a second chance. But
with both Sanders and Keon Coleman, we're not saying that these guys are bust and they're not going to get drafted. We're just saying that their combine performance definitely hurt their draft capital rather than help it. Like the top 5 guys we talked about, Sanders and Keon Coleman's performance made their draft capital go down rather than up. Based off
stunk down,
stunk
go womp womp.
down. But that's gonna do it for our combine review. Make sure you guys check out our socials. Maybe I can run this little tracker here. Look at this.
Oh,
Boom. Follow us at X at the Heroes FF and check out our website. We have rankings of some of the NFL players. Those will be updated as the rookies go to their respective NFL teams. So we'll have updated rankings with them included once that happens. We'll be talking about a bunch of trades as we build our way up to the rookie mock draft. I know for one, I am very excited as I have obtained a large amount of draft picks for this class. So super excited for the rookie draft class. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. and we will catch you guys on the next episode.
Thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Heroes of Fantasy Football podcast. Follow us on Twitter at TheHeroesFF.